Hey, good morning. Am I live? Look at you guys. How many people do we have here? It says 2 p.m. my time replay crew. Is this an old one? What's going on? Um, let's see. Good morning, y'all. Please say prayers for my hubby family. We lost a beloved elder, and he's with his wife, whom just passed away a few months ago. Thanks, you all. Oh, that's so like bittersweet, harsh Shelley. Definitely prayers for your family. Um, hit that like button. All right, so we are on. I scheduled it in advance. I'm on time even, I think. Like what does the clock say here? Yes, I was like totally on time. Um, great intro picture. Oh, cool. I'm glad you liked it, Dan. I had all kinds of ideas about what to do with this live today. I think it might be kind of a long one if you guys are up for that. Normally I try to keep them about an hour, under 2 hours for sure. And there's so many things I want to cover this morning. I really want to freaking talk about everything under the sun that has to do with justice. And you might think this is so far out there, but it's not, and it's fascinating. Hey, Pixie Knickers. Thanks for being here, peoples. You guys are the bomb. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and do my stuff so I don't forget to do my little thumbs up. Please hit that like button. Here, I don't have my cardboard sign because it's so ugly, but I've got my Lady Justice sign. Isn't that cool? How many of you guys have had the chance to walk up into this region here and look out over the freaking city? I'll be totally honest with you. I'm not a big fan of New York City, but that was my first time there when I was 7, and it was pretty freaking awesome. But times that I've visited since, like all I see is the underbelly of it. So I don't frequent New York. I love DC. I was actually born and raised in DC in my very early years, which probably explains why I have such a foundation in all this kind of government justice stuff. But then we moved to Los Angeles, which explains why I have such a strong foundation in, I'll just say, fame and fortune. I've known a lot of famous people, and I don't like to talk about that because they're just regular people. Most of them, get chewed up and spit out. So I will talk about it in generalities, but back when I was a kid and growing up, DC was not a cool place at all. Since then, it's become a very cool place. Part of what made it cool in the eyes of our country, I think, was a lot of Hollywood people lobbying in DC. So, and then we have Hollywood people who've become politicians, even Ronald Reagan, right? But like I said, I'm trying to cover like everything under the sun. So I'm going to try to stay focused too. And I will look up and try to keep up with you guys, but it is so hard on a cell phone because the print is so freaking tiny. And situation with my laptop, like I have it right here, but I can't use it to do this right now. Hopefully after the weekend I will be able to. Because the cell phone just drives me nuts with the tall, skinny frame. And like right now, you can see my little notepad, which I don't care that you see it, but the what I see in the screen when I'm filming and when we're on live is different from what I see in the screen when I'm watching it later. And it also sounds different. So I went ahead and put my airbuds. I can't even, I'm so non-fluent with technology. AirPods, I think that's right. I'm as bad with technology as I am with names and enunciations. So I went ahead and put my pods in before I started, hoping that there's none of that stupid buzzing noise. I don't know what's going on with that, but I am not kidding you. With technology, for me anyway, but I see it even with people that are really sharp with technology. It's always something. So that's just kind of life. So let's get on with the show. Why did I put that picture up of Jim Morrison Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, and Jimi Hendrix. And the thumbnail title that I put last night, I changed it this morning about number nine, number nine, number nine, who's missing. I was just feeling kind of goofy, but I'm going to stick with that track. Some of you probably know what I'm talking about. Most people know number nine, number nine, number nine from the White Album of the Beatles. Okay. So I want to talk about conspiracies, and I want to talk about justice, and I want to talk about business, because that's what we're dealing with. That's what I've been dealing with in pretty much all the cases that I've covered on my YouTube channel. So, right now, currently, it's Maui, 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 Wowie. And up until Maui, it had been primarily Idaho 4 and also Kylie Rodney. And I am just thrilled at what I feel like are some huge breakthroughs you guys made overnight in the Kylie Rodney case, in my humble opinion. I'll tell you about that. I feel like there's breakthroughs going on in the Idaho 4 as we speak, as we speak. So if you guys are keeping up with those cases, and I assume you are, because let's face it, this stuff is addictive. We are all like true crime junkies and, have this thirst and hunger for truth and justice that can never be satisfied, because it's sort of like solving a puzzle. Once you solve it, you want to get onto another good puzzle. And the more challenging, the better, to a point. I mean, you don't want to get stuck, right? That's not fun. And of course, I think a lot of us had felt stuck for a long time with Kylie Rodney, a long time with Idaho 4. I'm even going to throw some of our Watts Island in here too, because of the whole thing with justice and business. Money, money, money. Always follow the money. So let's start with the Beatles. I was born in 1967. I grew up hearing about how Paul McCartney died. How many of you have heard that Paul McCartney died? Because I grew up like having that go in one ear and out the other. I was just like, what the heck are people talking about? He's right there, obviously. So there's a humongous conspiracy theory that may be a conspiracy and not a theory. The jury's still out. And we will probably never know, because let's just say that it was a conspiracy to cover up car accident that he allegedly passed away in November 9th of, what was it, 66? Yeah, November 9th of 66, before 5 a.m. in Liverpool. So if he did indeed get into that car accident, and then they replaced him with the Ontario police officer that they allegedly replaced him with, the look-alike, um, how many people would get sued for everything they own? Like, not just the Beatles and their descendants, but all of the managers, all of the bureaucracies. For crying out loud, Queen Elizabeth knighted Paul McCartney. So if he's a fraud, that's what they would get sued for. That's what they would get put in prison for the rest of their days on this planet, if it's been fraudulent. And I'm not saying that it was. I don't know. It's actually a really fun conspiracy theory, in my opinion. If you look it up online, you can fall down that rabbit hole for the rest of your days in this lifetime, probably. So I will just kind of brush over it with a broad swath and see what you guys have to say, if anything. Abbey Road, Susan Dodge. Okay, right. I grew up loving the Beatles. I think The Who was my first favorite band. Probably the Beatles was my second favorite band as I was coming to age. And then Rolling Stones took over, and then the Grateful Dead. And then since then, so many bands I can't even mention. I love music. I absolutely love music. It's like the lifeblood of so much, right? So much creativity. John Lennon was a genius. Paul McCartney was a genius, is a genius. Ringo Starr, absolute genius. And George Harrison, okay? But I'm gonna, like I said, try to cover it with a broad swath. Why no air supply? Hi, Mark Molina, you're so cute. I am kind of weird about some of these bands, and Air Supply is one of them. And probably as an adult, I would have a better music appreciation, like Journey and Yes, and I hope not to offend anybody. They all have great songs, but I was so freaking into, well, like Blondie at the time when those bands were big in the late '70s, early '80s. Blondie was one of my favorite bands. But when I found the Rolling Stones, I mean, of course, I knew about them my whole life, but once I became obsessed with the Rolling Stones, I absolutely refused to listen to anything else for years. And if anybody was playing music that wasn't the Rolling Stones, this was kind of in my high school days, I would just leave the room. I mean, I would make an exception for the Police, the band, okay? But then I got into the Grateful Dead towards the end of high school, and was just like Grateful Dead and the Rolling Stones. I did a lot of research on the Rolling Stones. I did a lot of academic projects on the Rolling Stones. If you know the definition of obsession, I was completely obsessed. Like, I would have dreams often about meeting Mick Jagger. I won't go into it because then you guys will know that I'm just nuts. But I get very passionate about things, as I'm sure you've noticed. I'm really all or nothing. Um, and rather than fight that, I just try to channel it. So that's how I roll. So for people who are kind of like, what in the world are these people talking about? Abbey Road. If you look at the cover of Abbey Road and Google this conspiracy theory about Paul McCartney, you will be, you could be engrossed for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the month, the rest of the year. Um, the theory is that when he died, if if that is true, it's a theory that they were in the middle of a contract and they would have been in huge trouble financially and their bosses would have been in huge trouble financially. So what they did was they found a look-alike. They finished recording Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band that they were in the middle of. They put all kinds of clues on the cover and in the music, and then they continued that big time with their next album, which was Abbey Road. They continued it with the White Album. Um, they disbanded, what, in '69? But they didn't tell anybody until 1970. So again, the theories are that the disbanding was a lot of the stress about this big lie. So I did spend some time a few years ago studying this because it was so fascinating to me when I learned that it wasn't just a bunch of um, things that didn't make sense. So it did make sense. And you look at those record albums, especially Abbey Road, but certainly Sergeant Pepper. And like I said, you can Google it to find out what the clues are, and it is chilling, absolutely chilling. So the reason why I chose that thumbnail was because Paul McCartney was either 27 years old. I meant to look this up, or he was going to turn 27 when Abbey Road was released. So I'm not 100% solid in all of my facts with this. So I'm, like I said, painting with a broad swath. And if I'm inaccurate, I apologize. I did spend some time looking up a bunch of stuff this morning so that I would be fairly accurate. So the reason why it would be important to keep the lie is because it would even make a fool of Queen Elizabeth, right? But it would make a fool of all of us. It really would. Heather Mills, the wife that divorced Paul McCartney, she was not married to him for very long, and she sued him for a lot of money. And if you listen to some of her interviews, it very much sounds like she's alluding to this lie. I'm just gonna leave it at that. 'Cause I don't wanna get sued either. I'm kinda kidding, like, I mean, this is all alleged, and I didn't do my whole thing, I better do it. Everything I say is simply my opinion, simply for the sake of conversation, hoping to open up a great discussion. Um, I'm always hoping that my videos are educational for myself and for other people, And every single video that I've ever made to date has been for YouTube, and it's an entertainment platform. So Heather Mills um, seems to have a lot of vitriol towards Paul McCartney. I think she used the word fraud in one of her interviews. She didn't do a lot of interviews. She didn't speak on it much. She did get a humongous fortune in their divorce. So could be hush money. If you've never heard of Jane Asher, she was a television star in her teens, much aligned with Martha Stewart. She was gorgeous, adorable, super smart, super creative. I think her television show was like homemaking stuff. And I think she got together with Paul McCartney when she was about 17, if I'm remembering right. That was something I didn't look up. But they did get together in 1963. Jane Asher is still an author, and her books seem to be about this thing that I'm talking about. I actually haven't had a chance to read them. I have wanted to, and I hope to, and it's just not something that I've gotten to. Um, but they did break up in 1968. This alleged car crash, like I said, happened in 66. There's a lot of allegations that, you know, Mr. McCartney went from being right-handed to being left-handed overnight. He went from being taller than 6 feet to being under 6 feet, or vice versa overnight. Um, the allegation is that he already looked, this police officer in Ontario already looked like Mr. McCartney, but then he underwent plastic surgery to look more like Paul McCartney. And, you can look at these pictures all day long. And, my take on it is that we all look different in every single picture of ourselves that we look at. Different lighting, different angles, different moods, different, you know, whether you've eaten a lot of salt lately or not, if you're hydrated, if you're well slept, so many things that kind of comprise what we look like in our mood and our animation. All of that is huge. So I've noticed that my whole life, that everybody looks different in every single picture. But people have really focused on Paul McCartney's ears, because it's really hard to fake ears, right? We all have different ears. Um, but he won't get a DNA test to find out who his actual children are. And there could be a lot of reasons for that, but that's one of the things that continues to throw suspicion. I remember when he was on David Letterman a long, long time ago, and I was still 100% clueless about this whole thing. And Letterman said something about this, allegation that you died in a car crash. And Paul McCartney said, "That's funny because I'm sitting right here." And they both laughed it on and continued with the interview. And I just took it at face value. I was just like, "What? Okay." So then seeing that interview after doing a lot of research and falling down that rabbit hole and learning about this, um, let me say this. Allegedly, on December 3rd of 1966, Ontario Police Department reported a missing cop named Mike Campbell, allegedly. That Mike Campbell is allegedly the one that they hired to fill the shoes. If this is true, my guess is that none of them thought anything down the road. They just thought, we got to get through this contract, basically, and then we'll, wash our hands clean of it or whatever. Um, that would be how they fell into this insane mess. But it might just be a whole lot of hogwash. I could read some stuff to you so that if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about and you think this is a boring live, let's see if I can pull it up real quick and read a little bit to educate all of us. So um, let's see what happens. So I am Just going to Google Paul McCartney. I'm just Googling Paul McCartney died. Just those 3 words, and it automatically comes up. Paul McCartney died in 1966. Paul McCartney died in a car crash in 1966. Paul McCartney died in the 60s. Paul McCartney died evidence. Paul McCartney died today. Paul McCartney died in a car crash. Paul McCartney died when. Paul McCartney died and was replaced. So that's what I'm talking about. Um, and I'm going to tap on the second one, which is the died in a car crash in 1966. And let's see if I can just run into a really cool article to read to you guys. Um, Snopes, of course, says it's all a bunch of crap, but I don't believe Snopes at all. I've looked things up that I know that they're 100% in left field about. So let's see. Why don't I just read um, Guitar World? Should I just read a little bit of that? Their article here. This was written in 2010. Paul McCartney has his 68th birthday coming up on June 18th, or does he? Um, MVD Visual announces the release of a film from Highway 61 Entertainment. Paul McCartney Really Is Dead, the last testament of George Harrison, for North American distribution on September 1st, 2010. The following description of the film is provided by director Joe Gilbert of Highway 61 Entertainment. Um, in the summer of 2005, a package arrived at the Hollywood offices of Highway 61 Entertainment from London with no return address. Inside, there were 2 mini cassette audio tapes dated December 30th, 1999, and labeled The Last Testament of George Harrison. A voice identical to Harrison tells a shocking story. Paul McCartney was killed in a car crash in November of 1906 and replaced with a double. British intelligence. Is this interesting? I let me see if I can turn more to you guys because I like to make eye contact. Okay. Let's see. British intelligence had forced the Beatles to cover up McCartney's death to prevent mass suicides of Beatles fans. However, the remaining Beatles tried to signal fans with clues on album covers and in songs. Until now, the Paul McCartney is dead mystery that exploded worldwide in 1969, and it's fascinating how it exploded, was considered a hoax. However, in this film, George Harrison reveals a secret Beatles history chronicling McCartney's fatal accident, the cover up, dozens of unknown clues, and a dangerous cat and mouse game with Maxwell. Remember Maxwell's Silver Hammer? The Beatles' handler, that's who Maxwell is, and a dangerous cat and mouse game with their own handler. As John Lennon became increasingly reckless with the secret, Harrison also insists that Lennon was assassinated in 1980 after he threatened to finally expose Paul McCartney as an imposter. Cray cray, huh? Highway 61 Entertainment has collaborated most, and I won't read all of this. I'm just, like I said, filling in for those of us that don't know this stuff. Um, the entertainment has collaborated most of George Harrison's stunning account of the conspiracy to hide McCartney's tragic death. Harrison's complete audio tapes narrate this film that includes all the newly unearthed evidence. The Last Testament of George Harrison may prove to be the most important document in rock and roll history, leaving little doubt that Paul McCartney is really dead. Hey, Harshelly, I'm so sorry about your family. Um, Playing the songs backwards, exactly. I remember we did that with all of our albums to see what they really said. Yup, and Rusty says what the names of the documentary movie called. Let's see. Um, it is called Paul McCartney Really Is Dead, The Last Testament of George Harrison, and it was distributed for North American distribution on September 1st, 2010. And this is the description provided by the director Joel Gilbert of Highway 61 Entertainment. So, um, let's see. Should I just stop there, or do you guys want to hear a little bit more? I mean, it's pretty fascinating, but I wanted to get into our cases. I really want to get into the Idaho 4, Kylie Rodney, and Maui still. Um, so more, Rusty says more. Here, let me see what happens if I tap on that first one that pulled up. Let's see, grunge. Let, should I do that one? Let me look at what grunge said. This says estimated reading time 5 minutes, and it is the first one in the tab that I'm in. So it's called "The Truth About Paul McCartney Car Crash Myth." Here, let's see if you guys can see that. So if you're interested in finding it and reading along. And like I said, I did a ton of research on this. I had a lot of fun with it. It's probably one of the first real big conspiracy theories that I found myself completely fascinated by. Even if you're not a huge Beatles fan, you probably know something about one of the greatest conspiracy theories in rock music history. It's an idea that has captured the imaginations of cryptic-minded listeners and stoned truth seekers for more than 5 decades. It is a rumor that Paul McCartney, the principal singer-songwriter alongside John Lennon and the Beatles since their formation in the late 1950s, is deceased and been since a has been since a gruesome car accident sometime around the end of 1966. Again, November 9th, 1966, between 4 and 5 in the morning or somewhere around there. According to Gadfly Online, as the story goes, on an evening in November 1966, probably the 8th, a stupid bloody Tuesday, quote unquote, that's probably from one of their lyrics, in art, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Maybe you guys can. An argument took place between McCartney and the other Beatles at Abbey Road Studios. Oh, I always heard it was John Lennon. Creative disagreement. A livid McCartney stormed out of the building, hopped into his Aston Martin, and sped off into the night. And remember, he was living with and engaged to Jane Asher at the time. In his anger, he failed to notice the traffic light had changed. Didn't notice that the light had changed. That's a lyric we all can spot right away. And he spun out of control, smashing into a light pole at full speed, thus decapitating him. But the theory gets even weirder. I haven't actually read something before that said he was decapitated. He had his head smashed in. Um, Okay. The Beatles and their management, realizing the huge financial losses that might result from announcing the death, actually, not, they would have had to pay money back because they had been given advances. Um, Announcing the death of one of the members of the biggest band in the world, decided to cover up his death. They drafted in a replacement who has been masquerading as McCartney ever since. The replacement, originally called William Campbell, Billy Shears, aka, according to Salon, has and known as Faul, Faul, fake Paul, to true believers of the theory, has, if the story is true, written some of the Beatles' greatest work. So he was a musician, allegedly, before they tapped him as a police officer for Ontario. Um, and he was the father of 4 children. He fathered 4 children with Paul's first wife, Linda McCartney, and went on to establish the mega popular band Wings and had success with 20 solo albums, all under the moniker of the tragically deceased songwriter he replaced on the fly. Proponents of the theory point to a litany of perceived evidence on the Beatles' later album covers and cryptic mumblings and backmasked lyrics that referred to Paul's death. But how did such an out there rumor take hold? This is the fascinating part. Other account. That's a great name. You're from Canada. That's cute. Other account. Um, let's see. It is amazing how bizarre theories seem to be able to spread organically, and how I always say truth is stranger than fiction. Um, and how once established, they become near impossible to eradicate. The myth of Paul McCartney's early death is traceable to a couple of disparate sources. The first is an incident from around January 7th, 1967, when rumors spread around London's Fleet Street that McCartney had been killed on the M1 motorway between London and the northern city of Leeds. According to Gadfly Online, the night was very icy. I've never heard that part either. This is very educational for me. Never heard about the ice, which may have put rumor in the heads of some London journalists who were always keen for a Beatles story. The story was found not to be true after the Beatles press officer called Paul's home, and the phone was answered by the man himself. Meanwhile, hoaxes claimed that Paul's car did crash that night, but he wasn't behind the wheel. If this was the night when the seed of the rumor was sown, it would be 2 years later when the theory really took off, particularly among teenagers in the American Midwest. This is my favorite part. After a song titled St. Paul achieved widespread success in the region in May of 1969, according to hoaxes, in September, an article appeared in the student paper of Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, which asked, "Is Paul McCartney dead?" Though it didn't get much attention at the time, the article was an early indicator that a crazy theory was on the horizon. Skeptoid describes a phone call to the radio DJ Russ Gibb from an Eastern Michigan University student on October 12th, 1969. The student convinced the DJ that McCartney was dead, with clues found throughout the later Beatles discography when certain songs were played backwards. Gibb ran with the story on air for several hours, treating his listeners to backward snippets of supposed hidden messages. Listening to this show was another student, Fred Labor, who wrote for the Michigan Daily student newspaper. In the years since, Labor has admitted that it was he who confected many of the clues. And mind you, if this is true, a lot of people were paid off with lots and lots of money and payments. You know, you can't buy silence, you can only rent it. So keep that in mind. Um, okay, let's see where to go. Just kind of jumped around. Um, in the years since, Labor has admitted that it was he who confected but the clue is believed by many by conspiracy theorists to cryptically point to Paul's death. Sorry, when I lose my place, I'm like all over the place. I think I have it. It is he, too, who invented the details of the death that conspiracy buffs still cling to this day. Paul McCartney was killed in an automobile accident in early December 1966 after leaving EMI recording studios tired, sad, and dejected, also on LSD in some of the stories, or other substances, potentially, allegedly, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion. And I always like to kick over credit to Rich Lux for that cute little phrase, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion. I love that. Rich Lux, he's awesome. Okay, the Beatles had been preparing their forthcoming album, tentatively entitled Smile, when progress bogged down in intergroup hassles and bickering. That always happens, creative differences. Paul climbed into his Aston Martin, sped away into the rainy, chill night, and was found 4 hours later pinned under his car in a culvert with the top of his head sheared off. Sorry, I should have done like a, you know, a warning, but I hadn't read through this yet. So sorry about that. Anyone who that is triggering for. McCartney has been lighthearted about the issue. According to Live Science in 1969, at the peak of the phenomena, McCartney said, "Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. However, if I was dead, I'm sure I'd be the last to know." That's just a cute quote, you gotta admit. Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated, so you're saying that the rumors are true, they're just exaggerated. Okay. Um, and let's see. The Beatles are almost mythic in their position in modern popular culture. It took a lot of work and time to get there, listening to each other, listening to managers, maybe even listening to critics. And so, as with so many other things that achieve legendary status in humanity's eyes, such as the moon landings being fake or just about everything to do with Robin Hood, actual myths have sprung up around the Beatles. Rusty says Paul McCartney's new lookalike stood way taller than the band. That's why they didn't go on tour to play in front of the audience anymore because McCartney didn't look like Paul McCartney anymore. So he was 5'11 then to start, and then he was over 6 feet. But if you look him up, it still says he's 5'11 because I did that this morning because I was trying to remember which order it went in, if he got shorter or taller. But yeah, he got to be like allegedly like 6'2" or even taller overnight, allegedly. Jayrana Boomer says, sending love and light. I'm doing my side hustle, house cleaning, listening, hopefully not participating. What? Paul McCartney died? Oh, he's okay. Right. And another thing I learned while I was looking this up, well, I won't go off on tangents. Um, let's see. From Paul McCartney dying and being replaced with a double, to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds being an ode to LSD, numerous rumors, assumptions, and downright fantasies have dogged the Beatles throughout their career and for decades afterward. Some may even surmise the most ardent Beatles fan. Oh, some may even surprise. I thought it said surmise. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Some may even surprise the most ardent Beatles fan. Luckily, historians, reporters, and the band members themselves have provided all the details needed to separate truth from fiction. Here are the myths you can stop believing about the Beatles. Myth: Paul McCartney died in 1966 and was replaced by a double. According to a story written by Fred Labor and published in the University of Michigan Today in October of '69, Paul McCartney was not only dead, but he'd been dead for years, killed in a 1966 car accident. John Lennon had replaced Paul with a look-alike. The clues were everywhere, you just had to look. The piece contained over 2 dozen clues, all of which Labor made up. So I'm going to put this down and just talk about it off the top of my head for a moment because one of my kids had a poster of the Abbey Road um, uh, album cover on their wall at the time that I discovered this mass conspiracy theory. So not only was it Abbey Road, but it was blowed up. So it was really big. And I'd heard people talking about some of these things my whole life, but I never really paid attention, didn't know what they meant. So this is totally off the top. So you guys can correct me. Hey, squirrels, have you heard about this? Have you heard about the John Lennon fight with Paul McCartney when Paul McCartney went out and overreacted and died? That's a Kids in the Hall quote that I love. Overreacted and died. Anyway, focus, focus, focus. Squirrel. So Paul McCartney, it's nice to see you here. And let me just get situated. Okay, it's Paul barefoot. Thank you. You're getting me back on track. So Paul's barefoot on the cover of Abbey Road. They're crossing the street. There's John Lennon is wearing all white. George Harrison is wearing blue jeans and a flannel shirt. I think he's supposed to be like the gravedigger. And then what's Ringo wearing? Probably all black, right? and Paul McCartney doesn't have shoes on, and he's holding a cigarette, which, in England, they call cigarettes, what, coffin nails or something like that? Like, "Ooh, can I bum a coffin nail off of you?" Um, and also the way his hair is, it looks like the wind is just blowing it, but if you have this conspiracy theory in mind and you look at the way his hair is blowing, the theories that I paid attention to were that he was on life support for a while and that, his head was completely bashed in. And apparently Jane Asher's novels that she's written are about a woman who's engaged to or married to someone who was in a bad car accident and on life support for a very long time. So, she's still alive, she's married, she has kids and grandkids, and she absolutely will not talk about any of it, period. Heather Mills, like I said, she's spoken a little bit about her marriage to Paul McCartney, but she's pretty silent too. Um, so more of the clues on that album cover, crossing the road, kind of, crossing over, as many of us might remember from the Eat, Pray, Love movie or book that, uh, you know, when you're crossing the street, that's crossing over, but crossing over is also, of course, a term for going into the afterlife. Um, the things around where they're crossing the street, it looks like on the left might be the entrance to a cemetery. On the right, I think there's like a spooky guy who looks like an undertaker or maybe driver of the cars that drive the things around. Hertz. There you go. Um, there's just a lot of symbolism. There's a license plate that says if 28 because allegedly they did their math wrong and it should have said if 27. And but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's just some random license plate, right? But in this theory, if you're looking at even the stripes on the road where the crosswalk is, like everything in the picture has meaning, right? So, like where each of their feet are touching or not touching, the black and the white is extremely significant. It gets deep. And all of the black and the white cars in the background, it goes on and on. So let's reel it in. Let's get focused on Kylie Roddy since we have squirrels here. Um, oh my goodness, I caught some of your live last night. I had to go to sleep. Um, I caught Ara's 30-minute live this morning, and it's freaking brilliant, you guys. I'm gonna put a link to it. I also watched Truth Tsunami's latest and took about a million screenshots. Um, what do I want to say about all that? And anyone else who wants to just segue from that in from the cover of Abbey Road over into Kylie Rodney. Um, again, the theme is money. People don't wanna lose money. So, Kylie Rodney's case, if it's has nothing to do with trafficking, which is entirely possible, could just have a lot to do with well, I meant nothing to do with, trafficking of people. It could have more to do with the trafficking of substances, and a theory, of course, that some have had is that she may have died of substances. It could have been a combination of things. It could have been fentanyl, like so many people have passed from. But whatever it was that they didn't want that negative publicity for Lake Tahoe. Personally, my opinion is that it had more to do with her rival than anything else. But the information in both of these videos. Let me see. Um, my license says my height is 5'1", but actually my height nowadays from 16 to 40 and 5'9". Oh, 5'11". I read it as 5'1" since it's all squished together. 5'9" Right. Our heights actually change. I mean, I was 5'7 3/4". I would always say 5'8". It probably still says 5'8" on my license, but I'm probably 5'7", if that now. Um, Thought anyone old enough to know? I thought anyone old enough to know. I swear that's what they called a sig. Oh, the coffin nail. Um, Saw squirrels there live last night, treated for Kylie. And thank you. I knew I heard that my old punk days. So sorry for my giant coffee cup. One sec. Still finishing my morning coffee. I thought it was done. Transitioning over to my water, but I want to make sure that I don't miss some of these notes that I have from Ara's. What happened to them? I have too many notebooks. I might just have to. I might just have to wing it. Could have sworn it was here. So Ara has screenshots that it took early on in the Kylie Rodney case. Um, some brilliant screenshots that she decided recently she needed to share because she'd never done anything with them. So I'm going to, like I said, put a link in the description to her 30-minute video from last night and encourage you guys to look at it. It's absolutely fascinating. Some of the screenshots are just online conversations, that kind of thing. But like from the very next day, from August 7th, and talking about how they um, stopped searching Prosser on August 7th after they got 20 different search squads out there. They got the help of 20 different entities, allegedly, and then said, okay, let's stop. We haven't found her. Let's just stop. That's bizarre. That is truly bizarre. Um, I'm so frustrated that I can't find those notes. Let me just leave you guys for a second and see if I can find them. Oh, what happened? What fell? Oh, how absurd. I guess I really should consolidate into one notebook, but then my squirrel brain might get confused. Oh, I know what fell. My favorite blue light. Of all my lights, this one's my favorite. I'll just stick it right there and see if it stays. And then if my head is blocking it so it's not too much. Okay. Dang it. I totally lost my notes from this morning. That's ridiculous. I thought I only had these 3 notebooks. Like I said, I really should just consolidate into one. It's probably here just on a different page that I lost. Okay, so the things that Truth Tsunami put in her video were also screenshots of conversations, largely. Absolutely fascinating. It just really frustrates me. Oh, I found it. Whew. So it was in the notebook, the first one that I thought all along. I'm not as ditzy as I thought. Okay, here we go. I also want to bring your attention to the very most recent Harsh Reality, the very most recent Jewels of All Trades, and your very most recent Lawyer You Know. So all of these are talking about Idaho 4. So we will segue over into that in a moment.
and also the most recent Crime Circus, which was yesterday, which is brilliant. So I'm going to make this segue. The things that we missed from the beginning in the Idaho 4 case, very similar to the things that we missed in the beginning from the Kylie Rodney case, in my opinion. Um, there's so much information in both cases, and I think most all of it is relevant, but some of it is a distraction tactic, and maybe not even a tactic, but just ended up being a distraction. So, when people were looking into other missing people in the Kylie Rodney case, we were missing some real major significant clues that some smaller content creators caught onto and made little videos out of, but it didn't really catch on to too many people because they only had like 100 views or 1,000 views or something like that. But in the Crime Circus video yesterday, it's called something like Ladders and Tunnels. And so he's talking about the ladder that's leaning up against the house, the 1122 slaughterhouse, that was leaning up against the house when they had it taped off as a crime scene. And they even like wrapped the tape around the ladder, which was really odd, as if it was just like a pole to hold their tape, as opposed to it actually being a piece of potential evidence, which you've got 4 people slaughtered. Like everything is potential evidence. But that ladder, I'd heard about it so many times, and as much as I have focused on Idaho 4, I didn't really think much of it. And, I'd seen pictures of it. I didn't think much of the ladder. And maybe that was because I was getting hoodwinked by mass media. Possibility, right? Anyway, the tunnels is another one that, may or may not have significance, but I've not paid that much attention because I know that most universities have tunnels and most cities have tunnels. Um, so that's not that fascinating to me, but it should be looked at because tunnels are a way for people to do things covertly. Just like submarines are a way for people to do things covertly, which is why submarines were invented, was to do things covertly, right? So, as I said, segueing from Kylie Rodney, um, you know, the search in Prosser getting called off as soon as they had all that help. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. Remember before Kylie was found, spokesperson Placer Angela said they were focused on getting family closure. Wow, Mark, thank you for that amazing comment. And Harsh One Shelley says, Alex, yes, I know I almost didn't post it, but I'm not against loving whom you want, just not minors. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm not going to try to rewind comments just because my stupid cell phone is so precarious. I would hate to knock it down. I thought that that's what fell when that light fell. So fortunately, it wasn't the phone. You guys would have been like, what? Okay. I'm getting lots of views, not comments or likes, but I'm happy anytime I can say Kylie Rodney. I saw Drip Drop's video last night. Awesome, Harsh. I have checked out your channel and I love it. And I will make more comments and hit that like button more because I haven't watched all of them. Oh, Bluestone, you're so sweet. You're wonderful too. Okay, so let's segue into Idaho 4 because we are already at an hour. How in the freaking world did that happen? Because we're trying to talk about everything under the sun in one video. Maybe this should be part 1 of 5 or something. We'll see. I mean, that's what I love about having my own channel is I just kind of go with the flow and follow my passion. And I'm just so happy that I have people that are interested in what I'm interested in. So thank you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It makes it like a million times more fun. And learning should be fun, right? Not torture. Like school turns it into painful torture for so many of us. um, so one of the first things I want to say about the Idaho 4 case that I haven't said, there's things about each case that I've never said that I'm just like, I can't believe I still haven't said that. Like, I need to write it down and say it in my next video. Um, the thing about the Idaho 4 case that really has me scratching my head, and has for a while now, is Ethan Chapin's family not being interested in justice. They stepped out into the public arena and said, we're not going to go to the trial. It doesn't matter to us. That to me, I have an interpretation of that. I could be incorrect, but anybody whose child was taken like that, I would think would be more than interested in justice. So to me, it's almost like they're waving a little flag trying to say that the court process is a sham, my opinion. Um, and I'm curious if any of you guys have any thoughts on that. Let's see, 100%, as long as they're happy, they can be who they want, except a P thing. Yeah, I don't like them, haha. Yeah, they belong in prison, or more punishment than that. It's absolutely gross. Anybody who hurts another person, I think I said that just yesterday. Anybody who hurts another person is disgusting, in my opinion. Whether that's a physical injury, emotional injury, what any buddy who hurts another person is all about, in my opinion, is power and control. That they are such a piece of crap and they have no power or control over their own life, so they try to take power and control someone else's. Whether that be a government controlling its people, whether that be a domestic violence perpetrator controlling their spouse, an abusive parent controlling their child, it's disgusting. Like, why on earth would you want to hurt somebody, or would you be um, not caring or compassionate about causing someone else pain and suffering? It's just ridiculous. And there's so many people who do it, but there's so many of us who would never do it. You know, like, we wouldn't hurt a fly unless we had to, and that fly was bugging us, right? um, let's see. Thought Ethan's family had a second autopsy. I have not heard that. They're bullies, in my opinion. Right. And bullies are insecure. Like your typical, like, let's say, high school jock bully is very insecure. And that's why they act conceited, is to try to overcompensate for their insecurities. Has the decision been made about the cameras in the courtroom? I don't think so, Bluestone. I think that that decision is being made as we speak, I believe. That's why I'm so ramped up about all of these cases, because I feel like nothing's happened in the Idaho 4 case in a long time, until the Brian Enton interview with Steve Gonzalez that Jules of All Trades highlights in her short video that she put out yesterday. And then Harsh Reality is talking about her video in his. So that Brian Enton interview, and I'm so happy because I've been a Brian Enton fan for a long time, until News Nation just like completely trashed the reputation of anybody who is affiliated with them, in my humble opinion. So, oh, Alex, that's sweet. Well said. Lovely. Yeah, like, I mean, I feel so bad when I hurt my children's feelings, with punishing them when they need to be disciplined. And I think discipline is so important, but I don't want to make my kid feel bad about themselves, even if they've hurt my feelings, which, as your kids get older, they do that on purpose because they're sick of you having power over them. And I have to remember, they're the child, I'm the adult. They still love me. They're just trying to break away and establish their own autonomy. It's super important. Last I heard, Judge was thinking about cameras. So I had been watching The Lawyer You Know right up until I started this video, and I think he was live streaming. It could have been that he was like showing a live stream, so it wasn't being done at this minute. It could have been yesterday's proceedings, but I was under the impression that it was more proceedings today. But either way, it's being discussed and being considered. And Steve Gonzalez wants the cameras in the courtroom. And what I thought was fascinating was his opinion that the defense and the prosecution are not in agreement about much, but they're both in agreement about not wanting the cameras. So, what are they trying to hide? um, Other than everything. So I think the segue is complete, right? So now we're in Idaho 4. Um, so back on this theme of corruption and business and money and cover ups in all of these cases that we've been covering with Idaho 4. I've never gotten the feeling that Chief Fry was in control. He seems like Sir Douchebag, like a puppet. The person who looks like they're in control to me when I watch these like news conferences and things like that, I think his name is Scott Green. He's the president of the University of Iowa, or sorry, Idaho. Um, so the president of the university seems to be the one calling the shots. Do you guys agree with that? Um, I am really curious what Steve Gonzalez is referring to when he says that the families are going to be drugged through the mud in this court proceeding, in the trial, and that as much as he doesn't want himself, his own family, or the other victims' families to be humiliated and victimized with being drugged through the mud, he said that they're going to be talking about some really disgusting stuff. Like, that leaves a lot to the imagination, does it not? As much as he doesn't want that, he feels 100% adamant that they have to have cameras in the courtroom. So, what he's alluding to with that is, for all of us to discern or try to guess. What are you guys saying? Big hearing coming up on September 22nd regarding defense motion to dismiss. And today's the 15th, right? Or is it the 14th still? I can't keep track. Today's Thursday, the 14th, I think. Steve was telling us he is trying, but poor man seems like he wants to tell more, in my opinion. Absolutely. He's like busting at just bursting, just overflowing with emotion. And of course, he doesn't want to jeopardize any of the integrity of the case. So he's got his attorney there keeping an eye on him and guiding him through this, which is good. I really like that attorney, Shannon Gray, I think is his name. And it just cracks me up when I hear like reputable newscasters refer to Shannon as a she because they have no idea that Shannon is a dude. And it's just like, okay, so you're really not paying attention to the case at all. Like, you don't even know that the Gonzalez family attorney is a man with a name that is not that common for men, but it's not extremely uncommon either. I've heard it before. I'm happy our adults, but they know if they don't answer, it's call and search. So they call, text me. Yes, I have a code for text, so I know it's them. Oh, interesting. Because, yeah, one of the things that I wrote down in my notes here, I think it was from Ara's video, is how, let me just read the quote because I thought it was interesting. How captors, I think I know which page it's on and everything. Maybe I don't. Captors often will text a family member or force their captor to text a family member. Yeah, here we go. Suspected captor makes victim text or pretends to be victim. So Law enforcement never researched the screenshot from the deli. That was another thing. I'm so glad I went back to these notes and that I found them. Um, Ara makes that uh, maybe like a discovery or an assertion or a question in her most recent 30-minute video, that she's realizing as she's reviewing all this information that, in her opinion, it looks as if potentially law enforcement never actually researched that screenshot that was sent to them. They made it sound like they saw the video and they took that screenshot to show to the public, in my opinion. But the screenshot is all they got of that, right? Um, so, oh my goodness, you guys. And so I'm sorry if I'm being a squirrel and I'm jumping all over the place. Oh, something shiny. But after I made my video yesterday, I was really fascinated with all these freaking proclamations because, last week I read that first proclamation. It took me a total of 3.5 hours, I think. So I did it in 2 videos. And then I read the seventh proclamation a couple of days ago, and I did that twice, and it was 90 minutes each time, but only one of them like uploaded to rewatch it, so the other one's gone. I did that in the same day, and I'm so proud of myself that I could read out loud for 3 hours straight in one day. I mean, it's one thing to talk for 3 hours straight. It's another thing to read because my brain just starts like coming unraveled. And my mouth starts not working. The brain and the mouth start disconnecting. Anyway, so I was looking up the proclamations. I'm like, how did I miss the 5 proclamations in between proclamation number 1, proclamation number 7? Um, and there weren't really proclamations made like that in between. It was like adjustments on previous proclamations. So our first proclamation with the Maui case, and I'm not quite segueing there, but I will in a minute. That first proclamation was July 17th, 3 weeks prior to the fires. And I'm so sick. This is one of the things I've wanted to say forever. So sick of people calling them wildfires because they've not been investigated to determine what kind of fire they were. So when people say wildfire, 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 that's the gaslighting right there. We can't jump to the conclusion that they are wildfires because they very well are not wildfires. I've finally gotten around to watching that arborist video. The guy who's been an arborist for 48 years. Thank you guys for telling me about that. And I see that 400,000 other people have watched it too, so that's great. And, you know, just the things that he's saying about the microwaves and the fires in paradise and how they compare to the fires in Maui. Anyway, so 3 weeks before the fires that they always want to call wildfires, they made that first proclamation. And then the second proclamation was made on August 9th. And that was, they called it Second Proclamation Relating to Wildfires. That's what they called it. Oh, it's so frustrating. And so Sylvia Luke is the acting governor who signed that on August 9th. And she extended the second proclamation of August 9th as the third proclamation on August 29th. And the other person who was a witness to signing the second and third proclamations, I believe, was acting Attorney General Matthew Devin. How do you say that? Devonch. Matthew Dunvich, maybe? It's my best shot. Um, so why did they have the acting governor and the acting attorney general? Like, were the real governor, the regular governor, and the regular attorney general, where were they the day after the fires? The second proclamation was signed August 9th, the day after the fires. Why weren't they signing? Weird. Okay. So let's finish up with Idaho 4 and then delve more into Maui. And like I said, I wanted to talk about the Watts case too, because that case, I believe, was wrapped up with what they knew was lies coming from Chris Watts, just so they could wrap it up as quickly as possible to protect the business of Anadarko and the multi-billion-dollar merger, or multi-million dollar, I think it was multi-billion dollar. And they lost millions of dollars in those few days before they wrapped up the case. And in my opinion, that's why they're not going to reopen it, or they haven't yet. Hopefully, they will, to reinvestigate his mistress, because the company did not want to have two employees. It was bad enough having one employee, but two employees makes them look so bad, and it's so bad for business. And that business supplies that local government with a ton of money, so they want to do what Anadarko wants to do. Anyway, back to Idaho 4 and why it looks to me like Scott Green is the one calling the shots, because the University of Idaho is the bread and butter for Moscow, the way oil is the bread and butter in Texas or in Colorado, or the way travel is the bread and butter for Maui and other Hawaiian, all the Hawaiian islands, basically. I've been doing a lot of research about Hawaii too, you guys. Um, like I said, I get really passionate when I get into something. I get into something, and right now I'm a little frustrated because I'm spread out with all these cases, because there's stuff cooking in the Kylie Rodney case because of our good sleuthers online, Shan and Ara and Truth Tsunami and so many others. I'm sorry for the ones I'm not mentioning, um, but I'm trying to stay focused. And then all of the good work that Steve Gonzalez, Brian Enton, and the True Crime Sleuths are doing on the Idaho 4 case. I have not mentioned, have I? Oh, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Can you guys help me? The true crime content creator, Behind Criminal Minds, I think is the name of it. And he's done a series recently, the last month or two, about Chris Watts's mistress and about reopening the case. I think it's called Behind Criminal Minds. Again, I will put a link to that in the description, because he's been hitting it out of the ballpark. He's a trained attorney, and he's got his YouTube channel, and he's really passionate about getting justice for the Watts family. Um, Makes your head spin trying to stay up with everything, huh? And at the same time, it's so freaking fun. Like, that's why we call ourselves the Squirrel Squad, right? Because we're just like zip, 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 like back and forth. I mean, it's ridiculous. My concern with doing it is that I'm going to miss things, and I'm going to like start to say something and then not finish. And that drives me nuts when I'm reviewing my tapes and I don't get back to the point. It drives me freaking nuts. But then I try to put it in the comments and pin it. I love the squirrels. I always do the something shiny, whoop, squirrel. Okay, here we go. So we're wrapping up Idaho 4. What else do we need to say about Idaho 4 before we wrap it up? So we should be finding out what the judge decides to do with the having cameras in the court or not cameras in the court. And the last thing I heard before I had to turn it off so I could start on time on the Lawyer You Know was that the lawyers in that debate were comparing the case to the O.J. Simpson case, which I wanted to say something about that. Although it doesn't really compare, because, yeah, O.J. Simpson was kind of a rock star, movie star, athletic star, one of the biggest stars of his time. And technology was so different back then, and the DNA research was so different back then. It's apples and oranges as far as I'm concerned. But man, what I want to say about O.J. Simpson case is that Judge Ito blew that case. That man is an utter fool, in my opinion. And I knew it then when I was watching the case live when I was in graduate school and living in San Francisco, which is where OJ was from. I totally knew it at the time, but then there's so much information that came out over the years. Judge Ito is married to, probably still, his wife was a police captain with the Los Angeles Police Department, who not only supervised Mark Furman, but hated Mark Furman. And they had a lot of acrimonious interactions and personnel issues. And Ito and his wife both lied and said that they didn't know Furman because he wanted to be the judge on that case because he knew being the judge on that case meant he could quit judging and he could just publish a book and become a multimillionaire. So that's what they did. They lied. She said she didn't know Mark Furman. Like, yeah, I was his supervisor, but I was supervising 160 and I don't remember him at all. When she had conversations with her husband about this jerk off that she worked with, who's that same guy. So, I read everything I could that came out about the O.J. Simpson case while I was in graduate school. And I've read a lot of what came out since then, including the book that Mr. Furman wrote himself. So, I think I've read Marcia Clark's book, Christopher Darden's book, whatever Nicole Brown Simpson's best friend, Faye something, like that was one of the first books. I don't think I've read Cato's book if he's written one. I don't think I've read Ito's book. So I haven't read all of them since. But when I was in graduate school, when that case was going on actively, I was able to watch the entire thing because the job that I had at the time was awesome. And I could literally do my homework while I was watching live O.J. Simpson or Susan Smith trial and be getting paid all three at the same time. Like, okay, that's how I get this stuff done. So let's see. Um, let's segue from, and I wish I could tell you guys what I do for my work these days, but I'm not at liberty to discuss that. Just like I'm not at liberty to tell you my name other than Jazz, Xena, or Lady Justice, and I appreciate you guys not pushing me on it because I wish I could just put it all out there. I remember watching OJ trial in real time with my family. I have some old POGs with OJ on them and a few that say the juice is loose. Corruption and money buying innocence is very real. Let me just throw something in there that a lot of people might not know about the OJ story. His daughter, is her name Arnell. Arnell was living in the other pool house next to Cato. And Arnell, I want to say she was maybe like 8 years old, maybe 10, something like that, I think, when her little 2-year-old sister, who I don't think was quite 2, or maybe she just turned 2, drowned in that swimming pool. The same swimming pool that Cato and Arnell were living in the pool houses of on the Rockingham Palace estate. So when she was a kid, her little sister died in that pool that she lived right next to when her father allegedly may or may not have murdered her stepmom and her ex stepmom's friend, Ron Goldman. Um, when her little sister died in that swimming pool, the parents were throwing a pool party. I don't know who was in charge of the toddler, but what I do know is that OJ was already dating Nicole, and she was 17, I think. She might have turned 18 by then. But he started dating her when she was 17. She worked at it's gotten all famous nationwide since, but it started right there in Marina Del Rey, the Cheesecake Factory. She was a waitress at the Cheesecake Factory, is how he met her when she was 17 in high school. And he started up with her when he was married, and he ran to her when his little baby passed away. And then he may or may not have ended her existence on the planet and Ron Goldman's existence on the planet. Then you had Cato, who was witness to everything, but Arnell was nowhere mentioned. Arnell was never mentioned, and she was right there. Can you imagine how traumatized that woman must be? Unbelievable. by Bluestone. Hey, Shan, Ara, what you doing, girlfriend? Are you like on your lunch break or something? What time is it? It's 11:30 almost. So we are at 80 minutes, so we're getting close to an hour and a half. I knew this was going to be a long one. Why don't we just see if we can make it my all-time record, which would what, probably be like 2.5 hours? I don't know if we can go for another hour. So Ara, I've been talking about you. Don't worry, it's all good. Man, you kicked some butt with your 30-minute live last night, and I'm so sorry I missed it. I wrote in the comments I had to go with my family to Best Buy to buy a freaking, or to pick up a new washing machine that we had purchased recently. But let me tell you what a dream that is, because it's this high tech thing. I don't think it's 5G. I hope not, because it might give us all cancer. It's a washing machine that's a dryer too. So it takes 5 hours to do a load. But I'm like, well, good. Then we'll have 5 hours to fold each load. Because at our house, keeping up with the laundry is a huge issue, especially the folding. Washing isn't so hard, but not having to transfer it from the washing machine to the dryer will be awesome. So that was exciting, but I missed your freaking live and I was really upset about that. So the good news is that we've got this new appliance that will hopefully streamline some of our life. Um, and yeah, I don't know how we keep up with dishes, laundry. I do like all the freaking outside work of the house these days. Like, I don't know how I do that. I don't know how people in my family get away with not helping. I guess because they do a lot of the inside stuff, but I do inside stuff too, of course. I mean, I do laundry every day. The kids take care of the dishes, but I digress. We're staying focused, right? No, I'm trying to make sure I can fill the next 60 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. Um, so are we totally done with Idaho, or do we need to talk about Idaho a little bit more before we dive into the next thing, which is um, well, I want to finish talking about Idaho, and then we'll get into the next thing. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't think I know what the next thing is. I've known so far all along what came next, but then I guess a conclusion, because again, to quote one of my favorite Kids in the Hall episodes, Squirrels. Oh, you use the F word. F them dishes is something I say daily as I'm getting ready to do them. Oh man, that's so funny. I've been together with my husband for over 30 years, and we spent the first 13 years of our marriage fighting about the dishes, and we could still fight about them, except we just don't. And now the kids fight about the dishes. Um, anyway, that's besides the point. Yes, we're old. We're an old married couple. And yeah, dishes are just stupid. All the freaking housework is stupid. The outside housework is fun, but it's overwhelming at times. But anyway, we're staying focused. We are staying focused. The gap in leadership is what Steve Gonzalez was talking about in his interview with Brian Enton, that Jewels of All Trades highlighted, and then Harsh Reality was highlighting Jewels of All Trades and the interview. But, trying to be careful to leave Brian Enton's video for him so that he can get the views for that, because bless the man, he did such great work on Gabby Petito's case, and it seems as though he might be branching off from that ridiculous News Nation. And I had so much respect for News Nation when the Idaho 4 case started, and man, did that disintegrate and disappear quickly. Um, Love me some Jules and B. Enton. I know Brian Enton is the bomb. The bomb. And man, that I used to like Ashley too, but she has trashed News Nation. And I was afraid she was going to take down Brian Enton with her. And I just hope she doesn't, because I can't watch anything on News Nation anymore. It's like become the National Enquirer of YouTube, as far as I'm concerned. Alex says, it took me 12 years to train my partner to do the dishes. Haha, he's good at them now. We always joke about getting paper plates. Brian just needs his own show. Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, he did such great work with Gabby Petito. Such great work. And that case has keeps going. I hope that there's full justice there. We could talk about that conspiracy because I am probably not the only one here who doesn't believe that that other Brian is 6 feet under. You know, the one who did in the beautiful, lovely Miss Gabby Petito. I think he's out on the run somewhere and he needs to be brought to justice. And his family needs to be brought to justice either way, either freaking way. Um, Damn them. Disgusting freaks. My hubby can't cook, so he will help with the dishes if I say help, but I love the yard work. Yeah. Yeah, I can do yard work forever and ever. Um, and I wasn't always like that. I actually used to make my kids do it. But you're bringing to mind a Paula Cole song, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? If you do all the dishes, I'll do all the dishes if you pay all the bills. That's cute, huh? Um, F the laundries. I love it, Squirrels, because a minute ago you said F the dishes, and now you're saying F the laundry, and it's got a perfect double meaning. F the freaking laundries. They suck so bad. Like, they deserve to go to jail, in my opinion, both of the parents. And maybe Cassie, too. Like, at first I thought his sister was um, trying to break away from their crap, but no, I think that she may have driven to Montana and helped Brian get back to Florida. Let's see. The hubby's plate. I tried to teach him how to season it. I fixed my hubby's plate. I tried to teach him how to season it. All versions of the laundry's pure uh, puke or pun. I don't know, pun. Oh, all versions of the laundry's pun intended. Yeah, all versions of the laundry's can just drop off the face of the earth, right? Um, Squirrels of fire, my dogs are snoring. Cute. So I will be honest with you guys. I don't hate my laundry as much if I have new stuff to look at that I'm like, because I won't let anybody in my family wear anything brand new without washing it first. Um, because they spray new stuff with chemicals so that mold and stuff doesn't grow in it. Nobody should wear anything new without washing it first. And probably washing it more than once, but I've never really even thought of that until right now. Um, so if I have new stuff in there, then I'm more interested in going through the laundry to find the new stuff, and I'll end up folding the rest of the laundry because, I'm there, so why not? Um, but we're focused, right? So we are wrapping up with the Idaho case. The police chief and Scott Green. I definitely think, and I think his first name is Scott, the president of the university. I definitely think that Scott Green has more influence over the handling of the entire case and court case than the police chief does. That police chief is the biggest buffoon in my opinion. I tried to not be mean about it. I thought I was being mean about it until I saw him driving that flippin' U-Haul truck, you guys. I've told you before, but not for a while. The minute I saw him driving that U-Haul truck with that canary eaten Cheshire cat grin on his face, being the hero, like, I'm just like, dude, your pay grade is so far above driving a U-Haul, and you have work to do. You're in charge of a quadruple homicide. That was before they had anyone on the horizon. Why were they even taking stuff out of the house? Why were they messing with the crime scene? Remember, they were trying to completely empty the house out the morning that the criminal defendant was arrested. And I still maintain that we don't know. We don't know what's what in this case. And more than ever, I feel like the whole thing is just a sham. I feel like that's what Steve Gonzalez is saying. I feel like that's what Ethan Chapin's parents have said. I mean, even Cara Kernodle said that early on, basically, in so many words. I mean, she's not really got the wherewithal to speak on the matter. I think at the beginning she did, but she's probably relapsed since, sadly. I hope that I'm wrong, but I can't imagine, given all of that stress in her life and then this situation, and especially if it is to do with trafficking of substances. I'm blocking that red light because it's a little much. Um, but I've learned that having red and green makes better lighting than at other, like just regular white light. Anyway, um, so Cara Kernodle, I know that that's not the last name she was using until her daughter was deceased, and then I totally understand her using that as her last name so people know that that's her connection to this case. She's the biological mom of Xana, and whether she's had a problem with substances or not, she's still just as important as anybody else. And her opinion early on in the case was that Ann Taylor had no business taking this case. And I was all for the uh, the mother of the victim and what she was saying. Since then, I've come off of that because it seems to me that Ann Taylor is sincere in representing her client, but I'm still suspicious because she's still a county employee. She's still a court appointed attorney. And I would imagine that she's being as careful as possible because any misconduct could cost her the case and her entire career, not to mention her client's life. But it seemed like a conflict of interest for her to take the case. I was very opposed to it. And I'm still concerned that if things are as crooked as they seem to be in Idaho, that, she's just another part of that machine. So, what are you guys saying? Alex says 100% they shouldn't have touched anything in that crime scene. And the fact, so they were trying to finish cleaning it out that morning, and then Ann Taylor took the case and got to the judge and immediately made them cease and desist. Remember that on December 30th, I think. I think it was a Friday morning. But it was just so gross that they were trying to clean it out at the same time that the guy was getting nabbed. Like, are you trying to create the grounds of a mistrial? Because that's one of so many things that have looked to me like they were trying to create the grounds for a mistrial. Like that this whole thing is a sham and they don't want the guy to go down because if it's as corrupt as it looks like it is, everybody has dirt on everybody. So for somebody to out somebody, then that somebody can out them. So they all have to be really careful. And so, yeah, let's segue over into Maui because that's exactly what I think is going on there. Is this a good place to segue? Um, I saw that on Dante Makes No Sense. The nurse that lived across from me murdered her husband, and then she too got away with it because of her connections after 2 years of trials. Right. If you're a doctor or law enforcement, you probably will get away with it. Bethel May Site, Las Vegas, 1988. I will look that up. Thank you, squirrels. That's freaking nuts. And see, how old were you back then? You were a kid. You were a little kid. So growing up next to something like that is what made you hardwired to be the kick arse sleuth that you are. I thought it was situation with your brother, but it's both. I mean, I don't want to talk for you, but I just want to point that out, that it's nice to know that about you. So you grew up as a little kid seeing the injustice and probably being confused, like wondering, like, was she bad? Was she not bad? What was true? How do you figure out what's true and what's not true? And what's so confusing is that usually it's both. People have some good and some bad. Nobody's that I don't think I've ever met anybody who's completely good or completely evil. And that's why I love Spider-Man 3 so much, because that's what they talk about. Um, well, she bragged about it and admitted it, but got off. Beth is why I'm heavy into cases since I've been a wee one. Yeah, you were tiny. I couldn't agree more, Alex says. And I am so sorry if you guys can hear my stomach rumbling. I ate some protein right before I came on so that I wouldn't have that issue. But now that we've been on for over an hour and a half, what? I guess I have to eat every 2 hours? That's ridiculous. It shouldn't be rumbling, but uh, I'll drink a little bit. Um, Maui. So I mentioned that I finally started watching that video. Uh, it's called Blossom Inner Wellness, I think, the channel. And it's so fascinating. These channels like Brush Junkie and like Hawaii Real Estate, these channels that were all about their topics. And then they started covering Maui, thinking they were covering, fires. And then kind of slip sliding right into true crime without realizing it, maybe. It seems to me that Hawaii Real Estate saw that that was a thing as it was happening. Right away when he put out his first couple of videos, that he realized that things were not right. I think true crime is just a totally different arena than something like real estate or makeup brushes or inner wellness, where those things are pretty straightforward. With true crime, a lot of it is bass backwards, I like to say. And it's vile, it's absolutely vile. I mean, we're all justice warriors out here fighting for truth and justice for total strangers that we don't even know, but we care. And then we've got these trolls coming in and attacking us, and we don't know. I mean, most of us, I think, are seasoned enough to know that we don't know who we can trust. And even when you have somebody that you love who is an ally, they can still hurt you, either knowingly or unwittingly. Um, I learned early on in my mental health career that everything in life is like a combat zone. It's an emotional war zone. It doesn't matter where you work or where you live. Friendly fire is just as lethal as enemy fire. And you don't know if you're going to have an airstrike, a landmine, I mean, anything. You just don't know. And things can turn on a dime, things can go sideways. So you've got to trust yourself. Like, you are all you have. And, there's good people around us that we can trust. But when we feel like we're being wronged, we need to pay attention to that, because I mean, I don't think I need to explain that to anybody. We just need to follow our own instinct. And I feel like you guys are so good at that, and you've helped me with that. And I appreciate it so much. This thing with Maui, as soon as it happened, and I thought about my experiences on the islands, I thought that the land grab was probably what was going on, but all these things that people were talking about with the water grabs, I was like, huh, I don't understand. What is this? Talking about the plantations, talking about so many things. So for the last few days, I've really been diving into the history of Hawaii, not just Maui, but the history of Hawaii and the history of the water. What I was starting to talk about with proclamations, I want to finish up on some of that. I don't think there's really other proclamations to read out loud. Not that I'm looking for anything like that because those things are boring. but like I've said before, I think extremely important to pay attention to because that's the foundation that they are springing forth from. Let me see what Squirrels is saying. Facts. And Jay Rana says, I grew up thinking about the law was all by the book and they can't really make mistakes. All they have to do is follow the book, and then grew up and found out the phrase um, really meant. I'm not sure what you mean by the phrase with all the B and all those asterisks. Can you help me out, Jay Rana or someone? I'm 63 years old. I just grew up recently. First, they take the resources, then they take the land. No, you reading the documents saved me, the proclamation, from reading them. I love that you did an audible for us. Thank you. Oh, the bullshit. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So Jay Rana, I grew up, my parents were artists and they were pretty unstable to say the least. Um, However, my grandparents were very stable and military, and my grandfather, he was a colonel in the army for 30 years. He was a war hero from the Korean War. And my grandparents raised me more than my parents did psychologically. He was very much all American by the book. And at the same time, he was always trying to teach me about corruption. And I didn't really understand any of it until I got a lot older because as a kid, yeah, you think the adults know what they're doing. But I'm still coming to realizations like, oh, that's what he meant. So I appreciate very much the law. He worked in the Pentagon at one point in his career. He was in JFK's cabinet as a Republican, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, when you're an American, you're an American. Democrat, Republican don't matter. Um, you know, fighting for freedom, I feel like, is the most important thing that any of us can do, whether we're justice warriors online as internet sleuths or whether we're in the military putting on our combat boots and going out on the front line. Um, it all matters. And that's the beauty of a democracy, is that we all have the freedom to do what we want to do and to make our own destiny and live free or die. That was like my motto before I knew it was a motto. um, and what am I trying to say here? Just that, the Hawaiian Islands are part of our country, and the Hawaiian natives are just such a unique gem in this planet. Those islands are such a unique gem. And people have been fighting over those islands ever since those islands were discovered by various people. So for the the um the powers that be, that in my opinion are trying to steal the land where that town of Lahaina was, they're trying to steal that land where Lahaina was. It Where it sits has the most perfect view of the sunset, you guys. That's what it's all about. I mean, people are all about the sunset. And the whole island has beautiful views, but that island was a mecca for water resources way, way, way back, like over 100 years ago. And that's why they had the plantations there. And then now there's been 100 years of mismanagement of the water. And when I found out about the deadline for the water rights of the natives that won the water rights through the law over a year ago, like June of 2022, and they had to put their application in by August 7th of 2023, and then the place burns down oops, accidentally on purpose, right, Shan? On August 8th, the day after the applications are due, and then the very next day, the first thing the governor does is make the whole water rights laws null and void. So the corporate entities that lost the battle for the water rights got them anyway, because that's how they play, you guys. That's how the real world works. That's corruption. That's straight up crooked. And that's not the way it should be. And that's why I feel so passionate that all of us need to fight for what's right with this situation, whether we've ever been to Hawaii, whether we care about Hawaii. And I would say if you haven't been, go. I'd say if you don't care because it's just your age old. Martin Luther King, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, is a threat to justice everywhere. If they can do that there, they'll do it wherever they want. So right now, that's where they want, but nothing is going to stop them. Power is addictive. People get addicted to power the way we get addicted to true crime. I mean, the way we get addicted to sugar, the way we get addicted to anything. Corruption. I saw that word before I focused on it. I thought it was community. And I wanted to bring that back to Ara saying, calling all of us freedom fighters for Kylie's community, because her case kind of poisoned that word for us. And community is such a beautiful thing. That's what we have here, you guys. That's what Shan is so good at, is building community. And that's what I think the true crime culture ends up doing, even when we're not necessarily aiming for that you get around like-minded people, and there's so much power in that. The first thing the enemy does is divide and then conquer. It's the isolating that is integral to their conquering. And isolating the people on Maui was not hard because it's so far away. It's not only far away from the continental US, it's far away from the other Hawaiian islands, relatively, and Lahaina, relatively far away from the other communities on Maui. And just the way Maui is shaped, kind of like a snowman or an infinity sign or something. Um, and where Lahaina is located, it's isolated. And the people that were isolated, they cut off the water. They cut off the water. They cut off the power. They cut off internet access. And then they attacked, in my opinion. It's so disgusting. And I don't think anybody should let up on anything, really, when it comes to Maui. I did watch more of Starkey Farmstead. She's done a couple of videos since the one I saw yesterday morning that to me was really upsetting, because yeah, I'm happy that these people that she interviewed, two people, that their kids were okay, but I don't think that that means that everybody should shut the F up. I think that people need to make noise. Absolutely. And if there's no abductions that happened, then great. But we don't know that there's no abductions that happened, and we'll never know, in my opinion. There's a good chance that we'll never know, unless someone were to come forth and say, I was abducted and now I'm free. Will that ever happen? We don't know. There's a lot that we'll never know. And that's something that I can live with, but we need to fight for what we need to fight for when we see it and identify it. And the way that these people are acting, the things that have come out of that governor's mouth in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, and the queen or the princess, the Harpo. And, Harpo is a funny word because that's a term. I could Google it to be more precise, but it's kind of a term for like women who are like man eaters, I think. Um, I learned that from my studying of Nirvana. and the cover of In Utero and the video for Heart Shaped Box, that was all about the Harpo. And, you know, Kurt Cobain had a Harpo in his life, and there's a Harpo over there in Maui who is, I think very detrimental to the public health and safety on that island. And what's so frightening to me, making it unsafe for anyone, but then if people are afraid to visit there, their economy is dying already, you guys. I mean, COVID just about killed it, and this is killing it. And people have been moving off the island. So I found another new channel to share with you guys. Where are we at? We're almost at 2 hours. So there, I'm breaking my record, maybe not. It doesn't matter. My record might be like 2 hours and 22 minutes. I'm no squirrel on fire. I can't do no 19-hour live or 10-hour live. I love that one, Shan, where you did, live all weekend. Okay. Um, but this new channel that I found is called John Bodhi. I think it's Bodhi. And he's just an artist. He's just like a YouTube content creator. And he made this video recently, I think in the last month. He doesn't, I think it's really recent. I think it's more recent than that, but he doesn't say anything about Maui. Nothing. But I'll leave a hyperlink for it in the description. The name of the video is called Leaving Hawaii. And he's on the Big Island. And he's from Utah, I think. He lived on the Big Island for 10 years. And then he almost moved off. But by the end of the video, he decides not to. Hold on. And I think it's really fascinating. And I think it's worth encouraging people to watch it, because there are so many reasons to move to Hawaii. I mean, if you've ever wanted to live in paradise, that's paradise. I mean, I think paradise is wherever we make it too, but it's amazing there. The air is amazing, the natural wonders are amazing, the culture is amazing, the people are amazing. And he talks about the tension of being a white person from the continental US, and how he felt like he was taking up space in an island where space was limited, and that he should vacate to leave space for locals, for people who have their ancestry there. And at the same time, a lot of these locals who have their ancestry there can't afford to live there anymore, and they move to the mainland. They've lost so many people off of the Hawaiian Islands, I think, prior to COVID. And then COVID really did it in. And he, in one section of his video, he shows the prices of groceries on the island, and a half a gallon of organic milk is over $10, you guys. I think a loaf of bread was $10. And I believe it, having not been there for what I said, 97 was the last time I was there. I think I misquoted. I said 89 was the first time I was there, but I want to say it was actually 90 was the first time I was there. Spring of 90. And then fall of 97 was the last time I was there. And stuff was expensive back then. So that is almost coming up on 30 years, 25 years ago, if I'm doing my math right. I think I am. I think my math is mathin'. But everything was expensive. It's the same thing in Alaska. You have to pay so much for anything because everything is shipped in. Every single thing is shipped in, except for things that are growing there. So your coconuts, your papayas, your mangoes, your pineapples, your macadamia nuts. This is why we pay so much for macadamia nuts, because they're all shipped from over there. So we pay 20 bucks a pound here, but there they probably feed them to the animals. I don't know. They grow their own cattle on the islands, but that's a whole nother issue. One of the issues that he talks about in his video that I looked up, because I thought he said TNT, and now, new issue in Lahaina, they have TNT in their freaking water, you guys. Did you see this? Squirrels, I know you did. What are you laughing at? Um, Love Nirvana. Yeah, the Harpo thing. Um, Absolutely. Yeah. Kurt Cobain, man. If you haven't seen Soaked in Bleach or oh what's that movie called? The Heck. Dang it, I can't think of the name. It has Heck in it. Um the movie about Kurt Cobain's life all the way up until he passed away. But Soaked in Bleach is about him passing away, I think. Um Montage of Heck. That's the first Kurt Cobain movie that I watched that gave me compassion for him when I didn't have any, because seeing him live when he first got signed and him being so shit faced drunk and me being so disappointed in wasting my time when I wanted to check out some good music and it wasn't good because he was too drunk to walk, let alone sing. I'm not kidding you. Anyway, Montage of Heck is really good. Soaked in Bleach is really good. The whole Harpo thing. Um, Back on track to the TNT and their freaking water over there on Maui now, you guys. TNT. I think it was probably Hustle Bitch that had that. Um, there's not a lot of pastures and cows, but out there, milk is imported, at least in Guam, pretty much. Right, absolutely. Yeah, that organic milk is like the same organic milk that we would buy here for $5 for half a gallon, which I thought was expensive. They're also limited the people from growing to survive fruit, cane, veggies, meats. Now they're controlling and polluting the water. Um, Toluene, so bad. And toluene is TNT, is I think what Hustle Bitch was saying, or maybe it was another channel, that's just another word for TNT. It's just that if they said that they had TNT in the water, we would all know what that meant. And if they say toluene in the water, we don't really know what that means. We have to look it up and go, oh, TNT, how'd that get in there? So, yeah, crazy, 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 crazy. Very easy for them to poison the soil, the water, the air. That's what I'm so concerned about, the people's safety that are still there. And at the same time, I'm rooting for the people that are there to be able to stay there, because if everybody goes off island away from Maui, away from Lahaina, then they win. That's so frightening. But for people who are there who feel like it's not safe or they just can't thrive there, they have to do what they have to do. I'm sure a lot of people who feel like it's not safe and that they can't thrive there want to kick some butt and stay anyway, right? I mean, some people, the way we're wired, that just makes us want to dig our heels in. I mean, that's the way some of us are designed. And thank goodness for that, because, somebody's got to fight that battle. And the people that are there, I'm sure that there are a lot of natives and a lot of non natives who will absolutely not leave. I'm sure of it. But I'm also sure that a lot of people will leave because they feel like they have to. So, with that, let me drink a little water, stay caught up with you guys. It's noon. I'm not turning into a pumpkin, but we can start to wrap up because I do have to go to the bathroom. I was like, if I do too long of a live, I might have to just like vacate my seat to use the potty and come back. Grab a snack. East Palestine just contaminated everything east and south of the Ohio River. So, Shanda, you bring up a good point, because the polymer that they've talked about spraying on the surface of the burn zone, you said was the same substance that was spilled out of those trains in East Palestine. The derailment was also accidentally on purpose. So, yeah, even though I'm in Ohio, I've not paid nearly as much attention to that as you have. Um, and I'd be happy to get more educated. I probably will now later today even, because I was on your live when you were like having that light bulb a few days ago, and you said, "Wait, that's the same substance that they spilled on the trains in East Palestine. How can that be? The same substance, whatever that weird polymer is that they were going to dye pink to seal the freaking toxins into the earth." And then I was like, are they really dyeing it pink? Like, I said that twice on my channel, and I was like, I better research that more. That seems so nuts. And what I researched was that they decided not to dye it pink because they were getting complaints. They were getting so much pushback. So they were going to leave it clear. But still, this is what they say non toxic. But according to the research that I've done, it's non toxic in super minute amounts. When you have a mass amount, it's completely toxic, right? Um, be thankful you're west of it, babe. What? So everything east of it is badder? Huh. Interesting. And yeah, the Ohio River too. I like I said, I'll do some more research on it. But what's the name of the substance if you can put that in there? East Palestine just contaminated everything east and south of the Ohio River. Everything east and south of the Ohio River, like Kentucky needed that, right? And like West Virginia needed that. Come on, people. Wow. Um, so I'm not getting any answers about the substance that spilled out of the trains that they're going to seal the toxins into the earth with. I'd love to see the accelerants found in Canada fires. Right. And you've probably watched that Blossom Inner Wellness video. I'll put that one in my description too, the link for that for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. The 48-year arborist, and how he's talking about the trees burning from the inside out and down into the earth. Things that he believes are evidence of the microwaves, as he calls them. Vinyl fluoride, is that it? Squirrels, thank you. Thank you so much. So, yeah, spraying vinyl on the freaking earth? Are you kidding me? That's so disgusting. That sounds so dangerous. And I'm not a chemist and I'm not an ecologist, but that just, like, right off the bat sounds completely crazy. It sounds like you're going to seal in all this toxicity with more toxicity. It's all going to go into the ocean. It's going to go into that land, which is going to go into the ocean. Nobody's going to be able to eat fish anywhere near there, which is great for all of the harpos that don't want the natives around that are living off of the land and living off of the fish, right? Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Yes, look into what happens when it mixes with the water molecule and how it bonds to it. Ah, oh no. I can't. I'm just kidding. Yeah, sometimes this stuff gets so overwhelming, but luckily I just keep finding myself wanting to fight for peace and justice. Um, it definitely can get overwhelming at times, and that's when it's a good thing just to take a break, whether that's for a few minutes, an hour, a few days, whatever it is you need. We all have to take care of ourselves. Um, and I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here because I need to do the things that I need to do with the rest of my day. I thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that you have a fabulous rest of your day. It's just noon here in East Coast Standard Time. East Palestine, contaminated Ohio. I don't know what is that, Youngstown? Or no, Young and Mon Rivers and everything to the south of them. Okay, I will do some more research on that because that's crazy. Um, and yeah, it's even crazier that it's the same substance that they're wanting to contaminate the Maui fire with, right? Um, Yak. Is that how you say it? I see. I'm not even familiar with that. Yakane. That sounds like a Pennsylvania word. Like I know the Allegheny National Forest. It sounds like it's probably near there. Have a beautiful day, Jazz Pixie Knickers says, and everyone in chat. So yes, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Give yourself some breaks. Give yourself some relaxation. Um, More than anything, make sure you get your sleep, make sure you get your water, make sure you get your protein and your veggies, and be kind to yourself, be kind to other people. I'm always trying to remind myself and all of us to be forgiving to ourselves and forgiving to other people, because forgiveness is not something you do to let someone else off the hook. It's something you do for yourself to keep yourself healthy, because holding on to anger is one of the most toxic things that we can do. Um, I do want to show you guys my earrings because I've been making lots of jewelry too, and weird stuff, like really unusual geometric stuff that is uncommon for me. So I'm excited and I want to show it off. And I also want to send Pixie Knickers her stuff. Um, Thank you so much for your patience, girlfriend. And I think what I'm going to start doing is like once a month, I'll put a photograph of something that I'm going to give away. I'll put it on my community feed. I did put up a community post last night with the pictures from the Idaho case of the man without a face in the back of the corner club, and then some pictures of uh, Chief Moscow Police Department Chief James Fry and Mark Trivelpiece. I said Mark Trivet yesterday. The owner of Corner Club is Mark Trivelpiece. He looks nothing like James Fry. I mean, they both have goatees. That's it. They're both white guys. That's it. The guy is real beefy and it just has a much fuller face and is much younger. And whoever that man is without a face in the back of the corner club, they're trying to conceal who it is by blurring out his face. They did a good job. There's no way you're going to unblur his face. And they also did it so well that it takes a while to realize that they blurred his face, because you can zoom in on other people's faces, but you can't zoom in on his because they're sneaky. So why are they trying to conceal who that is? If it was the bar owner, which it's not, and it's obvious that it's not, and I've put up those posts months ago, but since that issue keeps coming up, I readdressed it in my community post last night. So look at those and tell me in the comments what you think about if it looks like it might be Chief Fry or not. Um, to me, it's so blatantly obvious it's him. Of course, it could be someone else, but in my opinion, it's blatantly obvious. And why are they trying to hide the identity of the middle-aged or old man who's hanging out with college frat boys on a Saturday night at 1:30 in the morning, just a few feet away from two beautiful young women who were slaughtered a couple hours later? No coincidence, you guys. There's no coincidence when it comes to homicide. And that whole thing he said way back in the beginning, like on day one, about, oh, well, they were getting a lot of attention at the bar. It's like young, blonde, hot college women are always going to get a lot of attention at any bar. Like, why are you even mentioning that? You're mentioning that because you and those other dudes were giving a lot of attention to those girls because you were tracking them, in my humble opinion. Possibly. It's a question. I'm wondering if. So, let's see. I don't know who named them. Don't know if it's tribal or after colonizers. God bless Jazz and chat. Please be sure to hit that like button, y'all. I know, and I love my little thumbs thing, so I like to show them. Um, And I'll show my little Lady Justice again just because it's so cute. And my screen is so much smaller when I'm on my laptop. It's all long and skinny, or when I'm not on my laptop, when I'm on my cell phone. So yeah, peace out. Sending you light and love. Thanks so much for being here and supporting my channel and supporting justice and truth. And I am going to keep tearing into it because it's what I do. It's what I love. It feeds my soul, and you guys feed my soul. So thank you very much. Um, Annie Ruler, did you just get here or did I miss any of your comments? They want Chief Fry to appear as far away, whomever released the pic just before the arrest, who wanted public to know, and also wanted us to know JD was not home in bed, in my opinion. And that's never been addressed, Annie. You're 100% on it, in my opinion. That's never been addressed. That photograph is Jack D. It's been confirmed by Kaylee's family numerous times, and no one's ever addressed his lying about his alibi that night. He said he didn't go out, but he went out and he was there talking to them. And somebody who looks just like the police chief was on the other side of him, or on the other side of Maddie from the way the angle of the photo is, talking to Hoodie Guy and Adam. Give me a break. I want to mention one more video that I will put a link to in my description with the other dozen links that I've mentioned, and I'll get them all in there. Just give me a while. Um, the other one is one of the most recent hard truths. She's been hitting it out of the ballpark too, in my opinion. And she has kind of creatively put together a whole timeline of how things went down that night, and whatever it was that Maddie told Adam, that then Adam was probably talking about at the bar while they're walking down the street to the grub truck. And then I'll just put the link to Hard Truth's video because she gets very creative with her work. And, this one I think is pretty ingenious. Um, anyway, peace out. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks a million, and see you on the next one. We are at, where are we at? 2 hours and 11 minutes. So very cool. We did it. Us made it.